In a peaceful Californian suburb where the houses had neatly trimmed lawns and white picket fences, David Johnson lived a modest life with his wife, Amelia. The sunsets painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, casting a warm glow on the neighborhood. This was their haven, a place where the world's chaos seemed miles away. David, an unassuming man with sandy brown hair and a gentle demeanor, worked as an accountant at a local firm. His days were predictable, filled with numbers and spreadsheets. Amelia, his wife, was the exact opposite. She was a formidable businesswoman with sharp features and a mind as sharp as a blade. She ran a successful tech startup, Amelia Tech, that had gained both fame and fortune in recent years. The couple's house, a charming two-story abode, stood as a testament to their hard work and love. It was adorned with vibrant flowers in the front garden and a cozy porch where they'd often share laughter over cups of coffee. Life in their suburb was, by all accounts, ordinary. The neighbors knew each other by name, exchanging pleasantries during evening walks, and children played merrily on the sidewalks. It was the kind of place where nothing ever seemed amiss, where people felt safe and secure in their routines. But one fateful evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky with shades of purple and indigo, David returned home from work, eager to embrace the warmth of his wife's smile and the comfort of their shared life. Little did he know that the tranquility of their quiet suburb was about to shatter into a million pieces. As he stepped through the front door, a sense of foreboding washed over him. The house, once filled with the aroma of Amelia's cooking and the soothing melody of her voice, was eerily silent. He called out to her, but there was no response, just a chilling silence that hung in the air like a heavy fog. With a heart pounding in his chest, David ventured further into the house, his footsteps echoing in the empty hallways. He finally reached their bedroom, and the sight that met his eyes would haunt him forever. Amelia lay lifeless on the bed, her once vibrant eyes now empty and her body marred by the gruesome sight of 20 stab wounds. In that moment, David's world crumbled around him, and he was plunged into a nightmare from which there would be no waking. The tranquility of their quiet suburban life was shattered, replaced by a chilling uncertainty that would lead to a harrowing journey into the heart of darkness as he searched for answers to the question that haunted his every waking moment. Who could have committed such a heinous act, and why? The once peaceful suburb now bore witness to a mystery that would test the bonds of trust, unravel secrets, and reveal the hidden shadows that lurked beneath the facade of their seemingly idyllic life. The journey to uncover the truth had begun, and the quiet suburb would never be the same again. In the aftermath of that horrifying discovery, David Johnson stood frozen in their bedroom, staring at the lifeless form of his beloved wife, Amelia. The room felt stifling, suffused with an eerie stillness that contrasted sharply with the chaos that had just entered David's world. His mind raced with disbelief, unable to comprehend the brutality of the scene before him. Amelia, who had been the vibrant heart of their home, now lay motionless, her pale face etched with an expression of terror. The soft ivory sheets were stained crimson, evidence of the gruesome ordeal she had endured. David's eyes welled up with tears, and he stumbled back, unable to tear his gaze away from the gruesome sight. Panicked thoughts swirled through his mind like a tempest. He needed to do something, to call for help, to bring someone, anyone, to witness the nightmare he couldn't face alone. With trembling hands, he reached for his phone, fumbling to dial 911. His voice quivered as he spoke to the dispatcher, struggling to find the words to describe the horror that had befallen his home. Minutes felt like hours as he waited for the police to arrive. Every passing second seemed to taunt him with the brutal reality of his loss. His thoughts raced, and a storm of emotions surged within him. He couldn't help but replay the image of Amelia's lifeless body in his mind. Each stab wound a cruel testament to the violence that had taken her from him. When the police finally arrived, their stern faces and somber demeanor reflected the gravity of the situation. Detective Mark Rodriguez, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for solving the most perplexing cases, took charge. He approached David with a gentle but probing demeanor, asking him to recount the events leading up to his gruesome discovery. David, still in shock, struggled to articulate his words. He spoke of his mundane day at work, of returning home with the anticipation of seeing his wife smile, and of the chilling silence that met him instead. He described the room, the blood-stained sheets, and the gaping wound in his heart. Detective Rodriguez nodded sympathetically, his experienced eyes absorbing every detail. As the investigation began in earnest, the house was cordoned off with yellow police tape. Forensic experts scoured every inch of the crime scene, collecting evidence that would later become critical to the case. The neighbors, alerted by the commotion, gathered in hushed groups, their faces etched with shock and concern, their whispers carrying the weight of a tragedy that had struck close to home. News of Amelia's murder spread through the suburb like wildfire. Friends and acquaintances, shocked by the brutality of her death, reached out to offer condolences and support. But beneath the veneer of grief and sympathy, questions loomed like ominous shadows. Who could have harbored such a deep-seated hatred for Amelia? What motive could drive someone to commit such a heinous act? The quiet suburb was now awash in a sea of unanswered questions, and the search for the truth had only just begun. David, consumed by grief and guilt, couldn't shake the feeling that he should have been there to protect Amelia. He replayed their last moments together, searching for any signs he might have missed. The guilt gnawed at him, driving him to seek answers, to uncover the identity of the monster who had stolen his wife's life. In the wake of Amelia's brutal murder, the suburban community buzzed with a mix of shock and fear. Detective Mark Rodriguez, a seasoned investigator known for his meticulous approach, had assembled a team of officers to unravel the mystery. Their headquarters, an unassuming office in the heart of the suburb, became a hub of activity as they delved into Amelia's life, seeking any clues that might lead them to the person responsible for her gruesome death. David Johnson, still grappling with the shock and grief of losing his wife, found himself thrust into a whirlwind of interviews and questions. Detective Rodriguez, empathetic but determined, pressed David for any information that might shed light on his wife's life, acquaintances, and potential enemies. As David recounted Amelia's life, the detective's notepad filled with names and details. Amelia had been a formidable businesswoman, heading her tech startup, Amelia Tech. Her success in the cutthroat world of technology had earned her both admiration and envy. It quickly became evident that she had made a fair share of rivals in her climb to the top. Among the list of potential adversaries were competitors in the tech industry, individuals who had felt the sting of Amelia's innovative prowess and strategic brilliance. David mentioned names like Richard Thornton, the CEO of a rival company, and Susan Parker, a former business partner who had parted ways with Amelia on less than amicable terms. Detective Rodriguez made a note of these leads, vowing to investigate each one thoroughly. But the list of potential suspects did not end there. Amelia had also been embroiled in a bitter legal battle over a patent dispute with a man named Greg Mitchell. The courtroom had become a battleground for their fierce disagreement, and it was no secret that Greg held a deep grudge against Amelia. David recounted other names as well, individuals who had crossed paths with Amelia in both her professional and personal life. Her charismatic charm had drawn many into her circle, but it had also left behind a trail of friendships gone sour. Sarah Foster, once a close friend, had fallen out with Amelia over a business deal that had soured their relationship. Mark Stevens, a former colleague, had parted ways with Amelia after a falling out over a project. Detective Rodriguez meticulously documented each potential suspect, their motives, and any past disputes or grievances they might have had with Amelia. The web of potential enemies was expanding, and the investigation was far from over. Amelia's family history also held clues that the detective couldn't ignore. David mentioned Amelia's estranged brother, Robert, who had been out of touch for years. The reasons for their estrangement were unclear, but Detective Rodriguez sensed there might be a story there worth exploring. As days turned into weeks, the investigation became a relentless pursuit of truth. Detective Rodriguez and his team combed through financial records, phone records, and emails, piecing together Amelia's life in meticulous detail. They interviewed friends, business associates, and former colleagues, hoping to unearth a motive that would bring them one step closer to solving the mystery. The quiet suburb, once a haven of tranquility, now teemed with suspicion and unease. Whispers of motive and hidden grudges circulated among neighbors and acquaintances. The community had become a stage for secrets to be revealed and alliances to be tested. As Detective Mark Rodriguez and his team continued their relentless pursuit of answers in the wake of Amelia Johnson's gruesome murder, they found themselves peeling back the layers of Amelia's enigmatic past. The more they uncovered, the more they realized that beneath her successful exterior lay a complex and secretive life. Amelia's early years were shrouded in mystery. Born in a small town in California, she had grown up with little fanfare. Her parents, John and Laura, had been simple, hard-working people. David, in his interviews with the detective, mentioned that Amelia had rarely spoken about her childhood, and any attempts to learn more had been met with a stony silence. Detective Rodriguez knew that understanding Amelia's past was key to unraveling the motive behind her murder. He embarked on a journey to unearth the secrets of her youth, hoping to find clues that might lead to her killer. One of the few leads Detective Rodriguez had was a faded photograph of Amelia as a child. In it, she stood beside her brother Robert, in front of a weathered family home. The photograph was old, and the expressions on their faces were inscrutable. Detective Rodriguez decided to track down Robert, who had been estranged from Amelia for years, in the hopes of gaining insight into her early life. Robert, living a quiet life on the outskirts of town, was initially reluctant to cooperate. He harbored his own grievances with Amelia and was wary of getting involved in the investigation. However, Detective Rodriguez's persistence and the weight of his questions eventually broke through Robert's defenses. As Robert reluctantly began to share his memories of their childhood, a fractured portrait of their family emerged. He spoke of strained relationships, of their parents' troubled marriage, and of Amelia's determination to escape their small-town existence. It became clear that Amelia had carried a heavy burden from her upbringing, and her drive for success had been fueled by a desire to break free from her past. The detective also learned that Amelia had been involved in a mysterious incident during her teenage years. Robert vaguely recalled whispers of a traumatic event that had left Amelia scarred and distant. He couldn't provide concrete details, but it was a clue that raised more questions than answers. As Detective Rodriguez delved deeper into Amelia's past, he discovered that she had left the small town abruptly in her early 20s, cutting ties with her family and leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. Her journey had taken her to the bustling tech world of California's Silicon Valley, where she had built a name for herself. In her professional life, Amelia had been nothing short of a visionary. She had founded Amelia Tech, with a relentless drive and an unwavering commitment to innovation. Her ascent had been meteoric, but it had also come at a price. Colleagues and former business partners painted a picture of a woman who was brilliant but ruthless, driven by a determination that bordered on obsession. The investigation was now at a crossroads, with more questions than answers. Amelia's enigmatic past had provided tantalizing clues, but it also deepened the mystery surrounding her murder. Detective Rodriguez knew that the answers they sought lay hidden somewhere in the shadows of her past, waiting to be uncovered. In the weeks following Amelia's murder, David Johnson's life had unraveled like a frayed thread. The once quiet suburban home he shared with his wife now felt cavernous and empty. Every corner of the house seemed to echo with memories of her laughter, her warmth, and her presence. Grief had settled over David like a heavy shroud, a constant companion that refused to let go. Sleep eluded him, replaced by restless nights filled with vivid nightmares of the gruesome scene he had discovered. He would wake up in a cold sweat, the image of Amelia's lifeless body haunting his every moment. David's descent into darkness was swift and relentless. He withdrew from the world, retreating into the confines of their home. The walls seemed to close in around him, suffocating him with memories that were both beautiful and painful. He avoided contact with friends and neighbors, unable to bear their sympathetic glances and well-intentioned condolences. Days passed in a blur of grief-fueled confusion. He wandered through the house like a ghost, unable to escape the gnawing guilt that whispered in the recesses of his mind. Why had he not been there to protect Amelia? Why had he not sensed the danger that had lurked in their seemingly idyllic life? The mere thought of stepping into the bedroom where he had found her lifeless body sent shivers down his spine. He kept the door firmly shut, as if sealing away the horrors of that night would somehow protect him from the reality he could not escape. The rest of the house, once filled with their shared dreams and aspirations, had become a mausoleum of memories, each room a silent testament to the life they had built together. David's grief soon gave way to paranoia. Every sound in the house, every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind outside sent his heart racing. He became convinced that the killer might return, that the nightmare was not over. He locked and bolted every door and window, setting up an elaborate system of alarms that would blare at the slightest movement. His mind became a breeding ground for suspicion. He questioned everyone around him, even those who had known Amelia for years. Friends who had once been like family now felt like potential threats, their motives shrouded in uncertainty. David's obsession with finding his wife's killer bordered on madness, and he began to compile a list of potential suspects, meticulously documenting every detail he could recall about their interactions with Amelia. Detective Mark Rodriguez, concerned about David's deteriorating mental state, made frequent visits to check on him. He urged David to seek therapy and counseling to cope with the overwhelming grief and guilt that threatened to consume him. But David, consumed by his obsession and distrust, rebuffed the detective's well-intentioned advice. As David's mental state continued to deteriorate, he became convinced that the answers to Amelia's murder lay within his grasp. He began to embark on his own investigation, driven by a desperate need for closure and a thirst for vengeance. He stalked the suspects he had identified, trailing them from a distance, convinced that one of them held the key to the truth. In his relentless pursuit of answers, David ventured into a dangerous and unpredictable world, a world where the line between justice and revenge blurred. As he plunged deeper into the darkness that had claimed his wife, he risked losing himself entirely, becoming a shadow of the man he once was. As David Johnson delved deeper into his own amateur investigation, the quiet suburb of California found itself steeped in an unsettling atmosphere. The once trusting community now harbored a sense of suspicion and unease, as David's relentless pursuit of the truth began to cast shadows over those he suspected of involvement in Amelia's murder. David's list of potential suspects had grown longer, and he meticulously tracked their movements, seeking any hint of guilt or deception. One by one, he confronted those on his list, questioning their motives and scrutinizing their every word and action. His first target was Richard Thornton, the CEO of a rival tech company. David remembered a heated argument between Amelia and Richard at a tech conference months before her murder. Convinced that Richard harbored a grudge against his wife, David cornered him one evening outside his office building. The confrontation was heated, with David accusing Richard of being responsible for Amelia's death. Richard vehemently denied any involvement, insisting that their argument had been purely business-related and that he had no reason to harm Amelia. The exchange ended with David's threats ringing in Richard's ears, and Richard left the encounter shaken and bewildered. Next on David's list was Susan Parker, a former business partner of Amelia's. Their partnership had soured over a failed venture, and Susan had severed ties with Amelia on bitter terms. David, driven by his belief that Susan held a grudge, confronted her at a local coffee shop. Their conversation quickly escalated into a heated argument, with David accusing Susan of murder. Susan, equally adamant in her denial, asserted that she had moved on from their past business dealings and had no motive to harm Amelia. The confrontation left both parties shaken, their relationship irreparably damaged. As David continued his pursuit of suspects, the suburb began to buzz with rumors and whispers. The once close-knit community fractured as neighbors and acquaintances found themselves drawn into the maelstrom of accusations and paranoia. Trust eroded and friendships strained under the weight of suspicion. Detective Mark Rodriguez, who had been keeping a watchful eye on David's increasingly erratic behavior, grew concerned. He recognized that David's relentless quest for justice was veering into dangerous territory. He pleaded with David to allow the professionals to handle the investigation, assuring him that every lead was being pursued diligently. But David, consumed by grief and obsession, refused to relent. His fixation on finding Amelia's killer had become an all-consuming force, blinding him to the consequences of his actions. He believed that only he could unravel the mystery, that only he could bring her justice. As the days turned into weeks, the investigation began to unravel in unforeseen ways. David's confrontations with potential suspects only served to complicate matters further, casting doubt on their involvement and creating rifts in the community. Detective Rodriguez faced mounting challenges as he struggled to separate fact from fiction, truth from deception. As the tension in the quiet Californian suburb continued to escalate, Detective Mark Rodriguez faced a daunting challenge. David Johnson's relentless pursuit of potential suspects had created a whirlwind of confusion and mistrust. The community was divided, friendships strained, and the lines between guilt and innocence blurred. Detective Rodriguez knew that he needed a breakthrough to steer the investigation back on course. He had been poring over the evidence collected from Amelia's murder scene and the subsequent interviews with the suspects. But it was a cryptic clue, an overlooked detail that would ultimately set the investigation on a new path. One evening, as the detective was reviewing the crime scene photos, he noticed something peculiar in one of the images. It was a faint but distinct symbol, barely visible on a piece of paper on Amelia's desk. It resembled an intricate design, a series of interconnected lines and shapes that seemed to form a pattern. Intrigued by this discovery, Detective Rodriguez enlisted the help of a forensic expert to enhance and analyze the symbol. As the image was magnified and clarified, a revelation emerged. The symbol was a stylized letter A entwined with a serpent with its mouth open wide, as if poised to strike. The significance of the symbol was not immediately clear, but Detective Rodriguez knew that it held the potential to unravel the mystery. He conducted extensive research, reaching out to experts in symbology and mythology, hoping to decipher its meaning. It was during this investigation that he stumbled upon an unexpected connection. The symbol closely resembled an ancient symbol from Aztec mythology, known as Coatl, which represented both a serpent and a deity associated with chaos and destruction. This revelation raised a host of questions. Why would such a symbol be present on Amelia's desk? What connection did it have to her murder? As Detective Rodriguez delved deeper into his research, he discovered that Amelia had a fascination with mythology, particularly Aztec mythology. He learned that she had traveled to Mexico several times, exploring ancient ruins and studying the rich history of the Aztecs. It seemed that her interest in mythology was more than just a passing hobby. It was a passion that had consumed her. The detective's investigation took an unexpected turn as he delved into Amelia's fascination with Aztec mythology. He uncovered a series of journals and notebooks in her study, filled with notes, sketches, and references to ancient deities and symbols. Amelia's obsession with Coatl in particular stood out, as she had documented its significance and symbolism extensively. Detective Rodriguez wondered if the symbol was somehow linked to Amelia's murder. Had her interest in mythology led her into dangerous territory? Was there a connection between her studies and the motive behind her brutal death? The detective's pursuit of the truth intensified, leading him to seek out experts in Aztec mythology who might shed light on the symbol's significance. He also began to re-interview the potential suspects, probing for any knowledge of Amelia's fascination with mythology or the symbol itself. As Detective Mark Rodriguez continued to unravel the mystery surrounding Amelia Johnson's murder, the significance of the cryptic Aztec symbol weighed heavily on his mind. It had become a focal point of the investigation, leading him down a path that would unearth dark secrets hidden beneath the surface of Amelia's life. With newfound determination, Detective Rodriguez delved deeper into Amelia's fascination with Aztec mythology. He sought out experts in the field who could shed light on the symbol and its potential connection to her murder. Through their guidance, he began to understand the symbolism of Coatl, the Aztec deity associated with chaos and destruction. Coatl was often depicted as a serpent, and its mythology was intertwined with themes of transformation and rebirth. It was a deity of duality, representing both creation and destruction, and its symbolism was complex and multifaceted. The detective's research led him to a startling revelation. Coatl was often associated with sacrifices, particularly those involving blood. In Aztec rituals, sacrifices were made to appease the gods, and blood played a central role in these ceremonies. The connection between the symbol, Amelia's interest in mythology, and the gruesome nature of her murder sent shivers down Detective Rodriguez's spine. With this new insight, the detective revisited the list of potential suspects. He began to scrutinize their backgrounds, looking for any ties to Aztec culture or mythology. It was during this phase of the investigation that he stumbled upon a lead that would send shockwaves through the quiet suburb. One of the suspects, Susan Parker, had recently been involved in an art exhibition that featured Aztec-inspired artwork. Detective Rodriguez paid a visit to the exhibition, where he discovered a painting that featured the same coatl symbol prominently displayed on Amelia's desk. The artist, a talented but reclusive woman named Elena Ramirez, had created the painting as part of her collection. Intrigued by this connection, Detective Rodriguez sought to learn more about Elena Ramirez. He discovered that she had lived a solitary life, rarely mingling with the community. Her secluded lifestyle and her interest in Aztec mythology raised suspicions. During an interview with Elena, Detective Rodriguez learned that she had attended the same tech conference where Amelia and Richard Thornton had their heated argument. She had overheard their conversation and had been intrigued by Amelia's knowledge of Aztec mythology. Elena's fascination with the subject had led her to create the painting featuring the coatl symbol. The detective's interview with Elena also revealed a startling detail. She had been a close friend of Sarah Foster, a former friend of Amelia's who had fallen out over a business deal. Elena had confided in Sarah about her painting and her interest in Aztec mythology. This connection raised red flags, as Sarah could potentially have shared this information with others. Detective Rodriguez expanded his investigation to include Sarah Foster in his list of suspects, suspecting that she might have been motivated by jealousy or revenge. He also intensified his scrutiny of Elena Ramirez, determined to uncover any secrets she might be hiding. As the investigation continued to gather momentum, the quiet suburb was engulfed in a cloud of suspicion. The ties between Amelia's interest in Aztec mythology, the coatl symbol, and the potential involvement of suspects became a source of intense speculation. Dark secrets were being unearthed, and the truth was drawing closer, inch by inch. As Detective Mark Rodriguez followed the threads of the investigation, the quiet Californian suburb found itself entangled in a web of secrets, lies, and hidden motives. The coatl symbol and its connection to Aztec mythology had opened doors to a deeper understanding of Amelia Johnson's murder, but it had also revealed a complex tapestry of relationships and rivalries. Detective Rodriguez's attention now focused on two key suspects: Sarah Foster, a former friend of Amelia's, and Elena Ramirez, the reclusive artist who had created the painting featuring the coatl symbol. Both women had ties to Amelia and a potential motive for her murder. Sarah Foster's involvement in the case became increasingly intriguing. She had once been a close friend of Amelia, but their friendship had soured over a business deal gone wrong. Sarah had felt betrayed by Amelia and had severed ties with her in a bitter falling out. Detective Rodriguez knew that betrayal could be a powerful motivator for revenge. He conducted a thorough background check on Sarah, looking for any evidence that might connect her to the murder. He discovered that Sarah had financial troubles in the months leading up to Amelia's death, which raised questions about her possible involvement. During an interview with Sarah, the detective probed her about her relationship with Amelia and the coatl symbol. Sarah admitted to feeling a sense of envy and resentment towards Amelia's success, but vehemently denied any involvement in her murder. She insisted that she had moved on from their past disagreements and had no motive to harm her former friend. Elena Ramirez, the artist, also remained under suspicion. Her interest in Aztec mythology and her friendship with Sarah had raised eyebrows. Detective Rodriguez dug deeper into Elena's background, uncovering a history of reclusive behavior and eccentricity. He paid another visit to Elena's home, where he discovered a hidden room filled with Aztec-inspired artwork, sketches of the coatl symbol, and books on mythology. It was clear that her fascination with the subject ran deep, but the detective could find no direct evidence linking her to the murder. As the investigation progressed, Detective Rodriguez decided to explore a different angle. He reached out to experts in art analysis, hoping that they might uncover hidden meanings or clues within Elena's artwork. Their analysis revealed subtle details within her paintings that hinted at a deeper narrative, but deciphering their significance remained a challenge. The detective also interviewed neighbors and acquaintances of both Sarah and Elena, hoping to uncover any information that might shed light on their activities leading up to the murder. The community's suspicions grew, and whispers of betrayal and deception filled the air. With each passing day, the web of connections and motives grew more intricate. Detective Rodriguez couldn't shake the feeling that there were hidden layers to the story, secrets that had yet to be revealed. He remained determined to uncover the truth, even as the quiet suburb remained on edge, awaiting the resolution of a mystery that had shaken its very foundations. The small Californian suburb had never witnessed such turmoil. With every passing day, the weight of the unsolved murder of Amelia Johnson bore down on the community. Suspicion, like a dense fog, clung to the once trusting neighborhood, and trust seemed as elusive as the truth itself. Detective Mark Rodriguez was determined to unravel the intricate web of secrets and lies that had enshrouded Amelia's murder. As he delved deeper into the lives of Sarah Foster and Elena Ramirez, two prominent suspects with ties to Amelia, he knew that he was getting closer to unmasking the deceiver who had committed this heinous crime. Sarah Foster remained a central figure in the investigation. Her falling out with Amelia over a failed business deal had left deep wounds, and the detective was convinced that beneath her veneer of innocence, there lurked a motive for revenge. He continued to scrutinize her financial records, seeking any irregularities that might connect her to Amelia's murder. The detective also discovered that Sarah had hired a private investigator to look into Amelia's life in the months leading up to the murder. When questioned about this, Sarah claimed it was merely to gather information about her former friend's success. However, Detective Rodriguez couldn't help but suspect that there was more to the story. Elena Ramirez, the reclusive artist, remained an enigma. Her fascination with Aztec mythology and her friendship with Sarah had raised questions about her potential involvement. The detective had explored her artwork and her background, but had found no concrete evidence linking her to the murder. One evening, as Detective Rodriguez revisited Elena's home, he stumbled upon a hidden diary. It was filled with cryptic entries that hinted at a tumultuous emotional state. Elena's writing spoke of obsession, anger, and jealousy, all directed at Amelia. The diary entries suggested that Elena's feelings toward Amelia had soured over time, and the detective couldn't help but wonder if her obsession had taken a dangerous turn. Armed with this new piece of evidence, Detective Rodriguez called Elena in for another interview. He confronted her with the diary and the emotions it revealed. Elena, initially defensive, broke down and confessed to harboring deep resentment toward Amelia. She admitted that her friendship with Sarah had fueled her jealousy, and she had become obsessed with the idea of ruining Amelia's life. Elena's confession sent shockwaves through the investigation. She revealed that she had planted the codal symbol on Amelia's desk as a twisted way of exacting revenge. She had believed that the symbol would terrify Amelia, reminding her of her obsession with mythology and the potential danger it posed. However, Elena vehemently denied any involvement in Amelia's murder. She claimed that her intention had been to frighten Amelia, not to take her life. Detective Rodriguez was faced with a difficult decision: whether to believe Elena's confession or to continue his search for evidence that would definitively link her to the murder. The detective decided to dig deeper into Elena's alibi for the night of the murder. He interviewed neighbors and reviewed security camera footage, hoping to find any inconsistencies that might cast doubt on her story. It was during this process that he uncovered a crucial piece of evidence. A security camera near Amelia's home had captured footage of Elena entering the neighborhood on the night of the murder. Her presence in the vicinity at the time of the crime raised serious questions about her involvement. Detective Rodriguez confronted Elena with the evidence, and she finally broke down, admitting to being near Amelia's home on the night of the murder. However, she continued to deny any direct involvement in the crime, claiming that she had been drawn to the neighborhood by her obsession and had not intended to harm Amelia. The detective, faced with conflicting statements and a lack of concrete evidence, knew that he needed to build a stronger case against Elena. He enlisted the help of forensic experts to examine her clothing for traces of blood or other physical evidence that might tie her to the murder scene. The quiet suburb remained on edge, torn between hope for justice and fear of the unknown. Detective Rodriguez's pursuit of the truth had brought him closer to unmasking the deceiver, but the final pieces of the puzzle remained just out of reach. With Elena Ramirez's confession and the security camera footage linking her to the vicinity of Amelia Johnson's home on the night of the murder, the investigation had taken a significant turn. The quiet Californian suburb, gripped by anxiety and anticipation, waited for answers to the questions that had haunted it for so long. Was Elena the elusive murderer, or was there still more to the story? Detective Mark Rodriguez was acutely aware that securing a conviction required more than circumstantial evidence. He knew he had to uncover a motive that would connect Elena to the gruesome murder. Without a compelling reason for the crime, the case against her would remain shaky at best. Elena's confession had revealed her resentment and obsession with Amelia, but it hadn't provided a clear motive for murder. The detective delved into Amelia's life, hoping to uncover a deeper layer of secrets that might point toward a motive hidden in the shadows. Amelia's successful career in the tech industry had made her a prominent figure in the community. As Detective Rodriguez interviewed colleagues, employees, and associates, a more complex picture of her professional life emerged. It was a world of fierce competition, corporate rivalries, and ambitious individuals, all vying for success. The detective began to piece together a narrative of strained relationships and simmering hostilities within Amelia's professional circles. Richard Thornton, the CEO of a rival tech company, had resented her success and the market share she had claimed. Susan Parker, a former business partner, had harbored a deep grudge after their falling out. Greg Mitchell, the man with whom Amelia had engaged in a bitter legal battle over a patent dispute, had never forgiven her. Detective Rodriguez couldn't ignore the possibility that one of these professional adversaries might have had a motive to harm Amelia. He revisited these suspects, pressing them for any information that might shed light on their true feelings toward her and the events leading up to her murder. Richard Thornton, in particular, drew the detective's attention. He had a history of contentious interactions with Amelia, including their heated argument at a tech conference. Detective Rodriguez confronted Richard once more, digging deeper into their past conflicts. Richard admitted to harboring resentment, but vehemently denied any involvement in Amelia's murder. Susan Parker, too, was brought in for further questioning. Her bitterness over their failed business venture was no secret, but she insisted that she had moved on and had no reason to harm Amelia. She offered an alibi for the night of the murder, which the detective would need to verify. Greg Mitchell, the man with whom Amelia had engaged in a legal battle, was also a person of interest. Detective Rodriguez discovered that Greg had recently fallen on hard times, facing financial difficulties and mounting legal fees. The detective probed into his financial records, hoping to find a connection between his troubles and a motive to harm Amelia. As the investigation into these professional adversaries deepened, Detective Rodriguez couldn't help but wonder if there was a connection between Amelia's fascination with Aztec mythology and her murder. He revisited Elena Ramirez's confession, searching for clues that might link her obsession with the Coatl symbol to the motive behind the crime. Elena's diary contained entries that hinted at her desire to frighten Amelia with the symbol, but the detective needed more than hints. He consulted experts in psychology and criminology to understand the psychology of obsession and revenge, hoping to find a link between Elena's feelings and the murder. The quiet Californian suburb had been gripped by the haunting mystery of Amelia Johnson's murder for far too long. As Detective Mark Rodriguez continued his relentless pursuit of the truth, the tension in the community reached its peak. Residents were desperate for answers, yearning to finally lay the unsettling case to rest. The detective was acutely aware that he needed a breakthrough to complete the puzzle and bring closure to the community. The key lay in uncovering the elusive motive that had driven someone to commit such a gruesome murder. His investigation was a relentless search for the missing piece that would finally complete the picture. Detective Rodriguez had delved deep into the lives of the potential suspects, including Richard Thornton, Susan Parker, and Greg Mitchell. Each had their grievances and reasons to resent Amelia, but none had provided a clear motive for murder. The detective couldn't ignore the possibility that one of them had hidden their true intentions well. His focus also remained on Elena Ramirez, the reclusive artist who had confessed to planting the codal symbol on Amelia's desk. Elena's obsession and jealousy had been laid bare, but her confession fell short of providing a motive for murder. The detective knew that he had to dig deeper into her connection with Amelia to unravel the mystery. As Detective Rodriguez re-examined the evidence, he stumbled upon a crucial detail. Amelia's journals and personal notes revealed that she had been receiving anonymous threatening letters in the months leading up to her murder. The letters were filled with ominous warnings and references to the codal symbol. The detective recognized the significance of these letters. They offered a potential motive that had eluded him until now. Someone had been targeting Amelia, using her fascination with Aztec mythology against her. It was a form of psychological torment, a calculated effort to instill fear and anxiety in her life. With this new lead in hand, Detective Rodriguez intensified his search for the anonymous letter sender. He enlisted the help of handwriting analysts and forensic experts to examine the letters for any clues that might lead to the perpetrator. He also questioned Amelia's close associates, hoping to uncover any information that might connect them to the threats. The detective revisited Elena Ramirez, questioning her about the letters and their potential connection to her obsession with the Quetzal symbol. Elena initially denied any knowledge of the letters but eventually broke down, admitting to sending them. She confessed that her intention had been to scare Amelia, to make her feel the fear she believed Amelia had inflicted on her through her success and friendship with Sarah Foster. Elena's confession was a significant breakthrough, but it also raised more questions. Detective Rodriguez needed to establish a direct link between the threats and the murder. He scoured the letters for any hidden clues that might point to a deeper motive. As he pored over the letters once more, the detective noticed a recurring theme. The letters mentioned a secret that Amelia had been hiding. The reference to a secret piqued his curiosity. What could Amelia have been concealing that had triggered such a reaction from her tormentor? With this new lead in mind, Detective Rodriguez revisited Amelia's professional and personal life. He combed through her business dealings, financial records, and personal relationships, searching for any hidden secrets that might have motivated someone to commit murder. It was during this exhaustive search that the detective uncovered a startling revelation. Amelia had been involved in an undisclosed business venture, one that she had kept hidden from her colleagues and associates. The venture had the potential to be highly lucrative, but it also carried significant risks. Detective Rodriguez believed that this hidden business venture held the key to the motive behind Amelia's murder. He knew that he needed to unravel the secrets that surrounded it to complete the puzzle. The Californian suburb, once a haven of tranquility, had been plunged into a turbulent sea of suspense and unease. The revelation of Amelia Johnson's hidden business venture and the threatening letters she had received had added new layers to the mystery. As Detective Mark Rodriguez continued to unravel the web of secrets surrounding the murder, the community yearned for resolution. The detective knew that he was closing in on the elusive motive behind Amelia's murder. The anonymous letters, penned by Elena Ramirez, hinted at the existence of a hidden secret that had tormented Amelia. The discovery of her undisclosed business venture raised questions about what she had been hiding and who might have been driven to commit such a heinous act. Detective Rodriguez's first step was to uncover the details of Amelia's hidden business dealings. He combed through financial records, legal documents, and correspondence, seeking to piece together the puzzle of her secret venture. It became clear that she had been involved in a high-stakes project, one that had the potential to bring great financial gain, but also carried substantial risks. Amelia had kept her involvement in this venture a closely guarded secret, revealing it to only a few trusted individuals. The detective reached out to these individuals, hoping to gain insights into the nature of the project and any potential conflicts or rivalries that might have arisen from it. One of the individuals Amelia had confided in was her friend and former business partner, Sarah Foster. Sarah admitted to knowing about the project and revealed that it had caused tension between them. She explained that Amelia had become increasingly secretive and distant, which had strained their relationship. Detective Rodriguez couldn't ignore the possibility that Sarah's knowledge of the project might have played a role in the murder. He delved deeper into her financial records and personal connections, looking for any evidence of a motive tied to the hidden venture. Another person who had been privy to Amelia's secret was Richard Thornton, the CEO of a rival tech company. Richard admitted to being aware of the project, but claimed that he had no direct involvement in it. However, the detective couldn't rule out the possibility that he might have seen it as a threat to his own business interests. As the investigation continued, the detective turned his attention to Elena Ramirez, the artist who had sent the threatening letters. He questioned her about her knowledge of Amelia's secret venture and whether it had played a role in her obsession and actions. Elena revealed that she had overheard Amelia discussing the project with Sarah Foster during a chance encounter. Detective Rodriguez believed that Elena's obsession with Amelia's success and her discovery of the hidden venture had fueled her jealousy and desire for revenge. However, he still needed to establish a direct link between Elena's actions and the murder itself. The breakthrough came when the detective discovered a series of emails exchanged between Elena and an anonymous sender. These emails contained cryptic references to the quartal symbol and hinted at a plan to reveal Amelia's secret. The detective traced the emails back to an encrypted account and, with the help of cybercrime experts, managed to identify the sender. The sender turned out to be Greg Mitchell, the man with whom Amelia had been embroiled in a bitter legal battle over a patent dispute. The emails revealed that Greg had learned about Amelia's secret venture and had used Elena's obsession to threaten her. He had coerced Elena into sending the anonymous letters, believing that it would force Amelia to reveal her secret. Detective Rodriguez confronted Greg with the evidence, and he confessed to his role in the threats. He explained that he had seen Amelia's hidden venture as a potential opportunity to gain an advantage in their legal battle. When Amelia had resisted, he had used Elena to apply pressure. However, Greg vehemently denied any involvement in Amelia's murder. He claimed that he had only intended to scare her into revealing her secret, not to take her life. The detective faced a dilemma. Could he believe Greg's confession, or was there more to the story? With the pieces of the puzzle finally falling into place, Detective Rodriguez knew that he was on the brink of uncovering the truth. The quiet suburb, held captive by the enigma of Amelia's murder for so long, awaited the final revelation that would bring justice and closure to a community forever changed by the secrets and lies that had torn it apart. The Californian suburb had endured months of uncertainty, fear, and suspicion. As Detective Mark Rodriguez closed in on the elusive truth behind Amelia Johnson's murder, the community yearned for the final revelation that would bring an end to the harrowing mystery. This was a pivotal moment that would lay bare the shocking reality hidden beneath layers of secrets and deceit. With the discovery of Greg Mitchell's involvement in the threatening letters, Detective Rodriguez turned his attention to the complex web of connections that had driven Amelia's murder. Greg had coerced Elena Ramirez into sending the letters, using her obsession with Amelia's success to apply pressure. But the question remained: who had taken the final, gruesome step of actually killing Amelia? The detective knew he needed concrete evidence to tie Greg Mitchell or anyone else to the murder. He revisited the crime scene, meticulously combing through the evidence once more. It was during this painstaking review that he stumbled upon a critical detail. Hidden in a corner of Amelia's study, beneath a pile of papers and obscured by a decorative vase, was a blood-stained glove. It was a chilling discovery that sent shivers down Detective Rodriguez's spine. The glove bore the unmistakable signs of a struggle, with Amelia's blood mingling with the fabric. The detective immediately sent the glove to the forensic lab for analysis, hoping that it might yield DNA evidence that could identify the killer. The results confirmed what he had feared and suspected all along. The glove contained traces of Greg Mitchell's DNA. The revelation sent shockwaves through the investigation. Greg Mitchell, the man who had coerced Elena into sending the threatening letters, was now directly linked to the crime scene. The detective couldn't ignore the damning evidence, but he knew there was more to uncover. As the detective re-questioned Greg Mitchell, he confronted him with the blood-stained glove. Greg's demeanor shifted, his confidence waning. He admitted to being near Amelia's home on the night of the murder, but he continued to deny any involvement in the actual killing. Greg claimed that he had gone to confront Amelia about her secret business venture, hoping to gain an advantage in their legal battle. He confessed to being consumed by jealousy and greed, but he insisted that he had only intended to intimidate her, not to take her life. His account painted a picture of a heated argument that had escalated into violence. Detective Rodriguez knew that he was close to unraveling the truth, but he needed to corroborate Greg's confession. He reached out to Sarah Foster and Richard Thornton, hoping that their statements might shed light on the events leading up to the murder. Sarah revealed that she had been present at Amelia's home on the night of the murder, visiting her friend to discuss their strained relationship. She had arrived to find Greg and Amelia in the midst of a heated argument. She confirmed Greg's account of the confrontation, but she also revealed a crucial detail. Sarah had witnessed Greg losing control and striking Amelia during their argument. She recounted that, in a fit of rage, Greg had grabbed a nearby knife. Sarah's testimony provided the missing link, the final piece of the puzzle that would complete the narrative of that fateful night. Armed with this information, Detective Rodriguez secured a search warrant for Greg Mitchell's home. There, hidden away, he found the murder weapon, a blood-stained knife matching the description provided by Sarah. The knife contained traces of Amelia's blood and Greg's fingerprints, sealing his fate as the killer. Greg Mitchell was arrested and charged with Amelia Johnson's murder. His confession, corroborated by the blood-stained glove, Sarah Foster's testimony, and the murder weapon, left no room for doubt. The quiet Californian suburb, torn apart by secrets and suspicion, finally found closure as justice was served. The Californian suburb had witnessed the relentless pursuit of truth, the unraveling of secrets, and the revelation of a shocking crime. As Detective Mark Rodriguez secured the arrest and confession of Greg Mitchell for the murder of Amelia Johnson, the community finally felt the weight of uncertainty lift. Justice was served, and the quiet suburb could begin to heal. With Greg Mitchell in custody, the legal process began in earnest. He was charged with first-degree murder, and the community's attention shifted from fear and suspicion to the courtroom, where the final chapter of this harrowing tale would unfold. The trial was highly anticipated, drawing widespread media coverage and a throng of curious spectators. The prosecution presented a compelling case, anchored by the damning evidence: Greg's DNA on the blood-stained glove, Sarah Foster's eyewitness testimony of the confrontation and knife, and the murder weapon itself, found hidden in Greg's home. The defense, however, painted a different picture. They argued that while Greg Mitchell had confronted Amelia Johnson on that fateful night, he had acted in the heat of the moment and had not premeditated the murder. They portrayed him as a man consumed by jealousy and greed, driven to violence by a sudden rage. The trial unfolded over several weeks, with both sides presenting their witnesses and evidence. The community watched with bated breath as the courtroom drama played out, their emotions ranging from anger and frustration to relief that the wheels of justice were finally turning. As the trial neared its conclusion, the judge instructed the jury to consider the evidence and arguments carefully. It was a decision that weighed heavily on the jurors' shoulders, for they held the power to determine Greg Mitchell's fate. After deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. The courtroom erupted in a mix of emotions, from tears of relief to a palpable sense of closure. Greg Mitchell, once a figure of suspicion and fear, was now a convicted murderer facing the consequences of his actions. The sentencing phase of the trial followed, where the prosecution argued for a life sentence without the possibility of parole, citing the brutality of the crime and Greg's lack of remorse. The defense, on the other hand, pleaded for leniency, emphasizing Greg's lack of prior criminal history and expressing remorse for his actions. In the end, the judge sentenced Greg Mitchell to life in prison without the possibility of parole. It was a sentence that brought a measure of comfort to the community, knowing that he would never again pose a threat to society. The quiet suburb could finally exhale, knowing that justice had been served.